feel like brewing a wheat beer. G'day guys, Beerhealer here and welcome back to the Beerhealer shed for another Brewie demonstration video. Today I am creating the Call Me Grainy, the wheat beer from these guys, one of the brew pads that's been delivered to me. Now, I thought I'd quickly go through what's included in the brew pad for those of you that haven't received one yet or are interested to know what's going on. First of all, you get your instructions here, which tells you everything you need to know about the beer, from the category and the different malts and hops and everything that are included in the beer. You get your the findings, the Irish moss tab to help clear up the beer and make all the gunk sink to the bottom at the end of the brew. You get all of the different hops that you need, separately packed with the dots on them to tell you which hop to put into which hop container. You obviously get your yeast as well in this, and you get your big bag of grain, all milled up, ready to rock and roll, ready just to pop in and get moving. So that's what's included in the packs. They're really nice and easy to use. Mine are coming from Grain and Grape in Australia, so wherever you are in the world, you may get them from a different supplier, but so far I could not be happier with the packs that I've received. So guys, one of the features I love about Brewie is it gives me lots of different aspects to be able to save time and that sort of thing. Now today, instead of connecting my hose to the back to fill the tank on the left-hand side with the cold water, which is about 10 degrees out of the tap, I've decided to go down to my hot tap down in the kitchen, which is linked to a filter, and get some hot water just to save some time and energy in getting this water up to the correct temperature to put over the grains in the mash tun. So I'll just pour this water into here. It's given me 16.1 litres required to go in here. This is the last of it, and we'll get the brew underway, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about wheat beer. Alrighty, so while that water in the hot liquor tank on the left-hand side gets up to the correct temperature to transfer over to the mash on the right, let's have a quick chat about what we're making here, the Call Me Grainy wheat beer. So what is a wheat beer? Well, traditionally wheat beers are made up of about 30 to 70% of wheat within their mash and the grains. The rest of it is usually made up of something like a Pilsner wheat or a generic kind of pale malt. In this case, we're using Pilsner and melanoidin to make up that extra percentage. So what does the wheat do at those kinds of volumes? Well, wheat has more protein in it than barley, and so what it actually does is make for a thicker, longer lasting head that sits on the top of those wheat beers. And as far as the sort of taste and all that sort of thing is concerned, putting wheat into the beer is less about taste and more about mouthfeel. So the wheat will create more of a silky kind of mouthfeel in this beer for us, which will be sensational. Wheat beers, they're traditionally quite bubbly, and they are fantastic for summer, which is great for you guys that are in the Northern Hemisphere right now watching this video, but for me, down here in Tasmania, when we're heading into winter, not so great, but I don't care because I reckon a beer's great any time of the year whatsoever. Now look, while we're waiting for that to do its thing over there, I thought I'd give you a bit of an example of what we're actually trying to create here. In my hands is a wheat beer by the name of Hoegaarden, which you may have heard of before, which is a pretty well-known wheat beer around the world. In other parts of the world, you might have tried a Sierra Nevada Kellerweis, a Four Pines, Hefeweizen in Australia, or the Polonier in Europe, but all of them are good examples of what we're trying to create here. And what we are trying to create in this perfectly poured glass here is that kind of cloudiness, that beautiful straw colour, and with this really nice solid white head that sits on top of the beer, which just looks sensational. These beers are to be served cold and are extremely refreshing. Cheers to great beers. Righto guys, so currently the Brewie is mashing the grains in. I thought I'd take a few seconds just to give you a bit of a rundown of exactly what that means. So basically you've got your crushed malts in here that came into the Brewie pad, you've got your water in this side, the water then comes across from the left into the right and combines with those crushed malts. Now what they're doing in this side over here is they're converting complex starches in those grains into simple sugars that can later on be fermented by our yeast and create alcohol. Now most home brewing setups are pretty much, your single step mash, probably in 95% of the cases, where you just basically got your grains, put the water over it and leave it for 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever the case may be. Something I couldn't really do in the past of my previous setup was multi-step mashing, but Brewie is just fantastic. It does it all for us. So it actually allows you to take those grains through a number of different temperature steps to make sure you get the most out of your grains. So in this case, it's either 3 or 4, I think, in this recipe, where basically you'll take the grains at a certain temperature, leave it there for a bit, go a bit higher, go a bit higher, and go a bit higher again. And in the end of it, you've basically broken down those complex starches at every stage of the process to make sure you're getting the most out of your grains. Sometimes they're called protein rest and those sorts of things, but just let you know that it's just a really good way of brewing to make sure you get the most out of those grains. So I've just added another 16 litres or so of water into the hot liquor tank here on the left hand side to bring that up to temperature to use in the next step of the brewing process. So the mash is currently going on over here, and then once that's finished, at that stage the grains, the water and the sugar, they're still going to be in suspension here in the mash tun, and then it's time to separate the sugars from the grains with what we call a sparge. Now basically what the sparge does, it extracts those fermentable sugars from the mash by taking the fresh water from this side and then basically mixing it over the grains here while it's taking out the water that's already got the sugars in it here. So you basically got this circulation of water from the left to the right and then all the way back into the left hand side again, where you have both lots of water full of all the sugars and ready to rock and roll with the next stage of actually boiling up that wort. So you're just making sure at this stage that you're going to get every last piece of fermentable sugar that you can out of those grains and then ready over here on the left hand side to boil. So we've talked about mashing and sparging today, but why I hear you ask? Well, it's all about efficiency. Something that home brewers traditionally struggle with is the efficiency of their brewing setup, and I know I did in the past, and I know I'm not alone. It basically means how well you could extract those sugars out of those grains and get them into your wort to use later on in the brew. It's important because as the more efficient your brew house becomes, the less grains you actually need to use to create those beers to achieve those higher gravity readings. So effectively it's a bit of a cost saving, if you like. I said, I struggled with it in the past, and I'm pretty sure that Brewie is going to help me out with this to no end, because there's some really easy ways to improve your efficiency. First of all, milling your grains. You've got to have a good mill to make sure you crack them open, not too much and not too little. And being that my brew pad has come from a very well respected provider here in Australia, Grain and Grape, I don't think I'm going to have any problems with that whatsoever. The mash out is another thing. So you basically raise the temperature at the end of the mash to sort of halt that process of extracting those grains and create that sticky wort and put it into a bit more of a viscous state to make sure that it can really complete that process and get out of those grains and get into the boiling tank. And then the last thing is the sparging, which, nice and slow at a mid to high 70 degrees sort of is best. We're doing 78 degrees here today, which, let that water from the sparge water go through the grain breads and act like a bit of a slow vacuum cleaner, if you like, and just pick up every little bit of sugar that it can on the way through, so that you make sure that wort that's going to be boiled up in the left hand side of the brewery here is going to be the absolute best wort that you can get. Well, there you go, guys. That's the end of the video today. I won't bother taking you through to the very end of the brew because we'll show that in subsequent videos at some stage. But look, I hope today you've enjoyed the video. If you're new to brewing or brewy, hopefully you've learned something. If you're more experienced, hopefully you've enjoyed the video and maybe can provide some of the others that aren't as experienced with some suggestions and some tips in the comments or whatever. But look, until we talk again in the Beer Healer shed when we fire the brewery up for another brew, cheers to great beers.